Okay. Um, let's see. I'm doing a mic check, but this is not the right mic. Okay. Now let's see. This is now the right mic. Let's see if it's working. That says I can hear you. Okay. All right. Now it's working. All right. And that says I got a chill. My sister is getting a fire ready in the wood stove. Should help. Nice. All right. Um am still actually I'm not finishing up getting ready. I am finishing up cooking something that was supposed to be ready well in advance of stream, and it's taking longer than I expected. So 1 second. Luckily I have a wireless mic, so I can actually just go check on it while still talking, but I don't know why it's taking twice as long as it's supposed to finish cooking. And I do not want to burn it. A little frustrating. All right, one more check. No, it still needs a little more time. All right. And leave it for another couple minutes. I can start the stream and then I'll just dash out to take it out of the oven so I don't burn the house down. Alrighty. Well, Des, I hope the chill goes away. And I hope when you say chill, you don't mean like a cold, but just like it's chilly. Uh, and my computer is just acting up today. It's annoying. All right. Hopefully the stream goes well, because like, wow, everything is acting up on my end. All right, so I decided since I didn't do a Halloween episode, I would dress up today. So we are doing. I even have. I even have my palette. So that's what we are going to be doing today. And let me get the. Let me pull up the. There we go. Yep. So yeah, we're doing a themed painting today. Okay, computer. Wow, just nothing is working properly today. This was, of course, my Halloween costume, so I thought, might as well do it for a stream as well. Yeah. Oh, all right. That is my alarm. Um. Oh, Des, you are on a 5 stream streak, by the way. You didn't know. So, yeah. Now I'm gonna make sure I'm not burning the bread that was supposed to be ready like literally 15 minutes ago, I think. I don't know what's. My oven must be, I don't know, baking at a lower temperature. I don't know why. All right, so yeah, why are they not cooking? I don't understand. I do not understand what is going on. So yes, happy little trees today. Did I enter the Portrait Society of America thingy? I just got a notice there's only 3 days left. Um, is this for um, is this for Portrait Society of America or is this for something else? If I'm not mistaken, for Portrait Society of America, you have to. Uh, I thought you had to be a member um, in order to enter. Am I wrong? I thought you had to be a member in order to enter. And so um, this year I lapsed on my membership because it just wasn't financially, you know. I was, but this year I skipped it because things have just been very tight. So I figured, you know, I'll skip a year and then I can get back to it. All right, let's get the paint out. But yeah, so no, not entering this year. Maybe next year. I still have to make that video on it too. I just I have not had any time lately. It's been well, okay, let me rephrase that. I have had some time. I went to a Halloween party, but I feel like you gotta take some time off. And that was literally just like a couple hours, right? But I guess technically I had time, but I'm trying to be reasonable. Like you gotta be able to take some time off occasionally. But yeah, other than that, I don't think I've done anything really lately. Been very I've been very busy. That is my alarm. If you can hear it, I'm sorry. That is on my end. Yeah. Um, no, I do like Portrait Society of America, but uh, and this year, the conference is in Atlanta, which is um, in a way easier for me to go to, but um, but because I have family in Washington or Maryland, when it's in Washington, it's actually better for me because I can go visit my family and go to the conference on one airplane ticket kind of thing. So it's a little better for me when it's in Washington. They keep moving it. It ping pongs between Washington and Atlanta every year. I wish they'd bring it to Texas. That'd be nice. Make my life easier. Um, and then um, there's also some other conventions I want to look at participating in. Portrait Society has a tendency, um, not exclusively, but they do lean more traditional. Like I said, not exclusively, because there are some standouts, but generally speaking, they lean way more like traditional kind of style of portraiture. And, you know, I um, I don't want to say that I'm like my stuff isn't, but some of it might not be entirely. And then I actually want to push that a little more to be, less traditional kind of thing. So I don't know if I'm their taste necessarily. A lot of really cool artists go there. It's not anything about the artist, and like I said, there are definitely standouts. Like oh my god, I'm blanking on his name right now. Scott is it Birch? Yeah, his stuff kind of breaks that, but um I'm pretty sure he hasn't always been like that. He's kind of developed over years, so I think that's also a big part of it. I don't know. Alrighty. You know what's funny is oh, technically speaking, I don't think this reference. I guess there's two trees in it technically, but it is just a landscape. So we'll see how well how it comes out. All right, last time I'm just taking the bread out of the oven. I'm so tired of this. If it's not cooked, it's not cooked. Whatever. Stupid recipe telling me a certain amount of time, literally taking double that time. I'm glad I took them out because the bottoms were about to burn. There we go. All right. Sorry, I meant to have this done before stream ever started, but jeez. All right. Sorry, I know, sloppy way of starting stream. What can you do? Okay. Don't worry. Ted says, don't worry about it. Run into the bathroom, be right back. Alrighty. Ooh. Alrighty. Let's see. Camera, stop shaking. Oh. Alrighty. Now we can get started. So I got my palette. I'm not doing quite Bob Ross technique because, come on. But, still playing the part. I need my solvent. There we go. This palette, honestly, not very comfortable for a few reasons. Oh, Thalo, you are so extra all the time. So I'm just going to start by mixing up some stuff that I'm going to use in just a minute. And my black always has a lot of extra oil for some reason. So I'm going to just soak that up real quick. Yeah, we'll see how long I can tolerate this this palette though. It's like I said, it's very uncomfortable. I really do not recommend to anyone get a square palette. Um, they're really not comfortable. I know he often starts with the sky. I was going to start with the sky, but I mixed this up, and instead of just cleaning it to start with the sky, I'm just going to go ahead with this and then go back to the sky. Ah, I need a new container for my solvent. I really do. This is ridiculous. Welcome back, Des. Hopefully it's warmed up a bit for you. Oh, what? You streamed? Ah, I'm sorry I missed it. I don't even remember what happened yesterday, like what I was doing. Hey, Cookie Monster, welcome. Des, I'm sorry I missed your stream. I didn't realize you were streaming. I honestly cannot remember what happened yesterday, like what I was doing. But yeah, it was a test. Wasn't going to make an announcement or anything. Got it. How you doing, Cookie Monster? Out of curiosity, what were you for Halloween? How'd your test go, though, Des? And were you streaming to multiple sites, or just Twitch, or what? You love my new haircut? I'm glad. It's actually really good for the winter because I did not realize how warm this was going to make me. Surprisingly, it really heats you up. This has just twitched. All the software had to be updated, and I'm shocked that everything worked. Oh, I'm glad it worked. Yeah, I still need to figure out how to update my software and still be able to stream the way I do. We'll see if I ever figure that out. Um, but yeah, this was my Halloween costume, and I thought it's too perfect to not do a stream like this. So since I didn't do an actual Halloween stream, on the day, I figured today'd be the day. I even have the palette. Hey, my black paint's trying to make a run for it. Get back there. My black paint, for some reason, always comes out with a ton of excess oil. It was a result of the open call I participated in. Unfortunately, I didn't win. Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. That sucks. I'm sure you already know this, so um, but to anyone who isn't aware of how these things work, don't ever feel like it's always good to take criticism about your work and stuff like that, when you get it from the right people, but don't ever take rejection from juried shows like this as anything serious because how they run in the background, like behind the scenes, a lot of times there's a lot of, you know, politics and favoritism and all kinds of stuff. It's not worth, getting like it's disappointing. I totally understand that, but it's not worth, letting it reflect on your art in any way. And I'm sure you know this already. It's just a general statement, you know what I mean? Hey, Bob, how are you doing? Doing all right. Doing all right, Michael. How are you? Let's see. Des says, I need to figure out how to take my Twitch video and speed it up into time lapse. I can tell you how to do that. And one major driving factor is if they can make money off of you. Oh, and your work. Yeah, yeah, for sure, for sure. Let's see. Oh, Cookie Monster says he didn't win, but it was a great experience, and I learned a lot. That's fantastic. That's great. But yeah, there's so much to it, and you know, it's disappointing for sure. But you know, and stop moving, stupid palette. Still haven't fixed it. So I don't do the couch thing that Bob Ross used to do. But for anyone who doesn't know, Bob Ross, when he would do his paintings, he not always, but most of the time, he would prep it with liquid white, which is just a like white paint that I think I assume is more liquidy. Otherwise, why mention it? Um, but he'd prep his whole painting with it, so that he was painting into, I think it's called painting into a couch or into a cushion. It's because all the paint goes on real slick and soft, and everything kind of you know slides around and mixes automatically, kind of thing. Okay, 1 second. Let me just get a clamp here. There we go. Let me make sure that it's still in focus. Okay. Got a little, hold on, got a little turned around on the camera. Filters, 3D. Hey. And the slightest change and everything gets all messed up. Yeah. Why does it? No. Amazing how much, like, just the slightest change makes in this stuff. There we go. Let's see. The winner to deservedly won. I won't be discouraged. Art is my passion. That's great, Cookie Monster. You don't see my reference photo, but I think you're painting some of a landscape and seascape with a mountain. Yes, you're right. You don't see it, but you are absolutely correct. That is what I'm doing. It'll become very clear, I think. This is actually a photo based off of a photo I took out in I think it's called Big Sur or Big Surf. I can't remember. It's it's off the coast of California near San Francisco or something like, yeah. Or on the way from San Francisco to LA, we were driving. This is when I lived in LA, and we were driving back from a trip we took to San Francisco. And so I took a bunch of photos. Most of them are, just for me and not very good. But I thought this one I might be able to make something halfway decent out of it. I decided to do a landscape to be more in costume, because if I did a portrait, it'd be weird. So I had to do a landscape. And there are a couple of trees, so we will actually get to paint some happy little trees as well. Very nice to see me paint a landscape. Oh, wait till the result, and then say that. Uh, I've painted landscapes before, but I will not claim to be, a landscape painter. But yeah, I've done some in the past. This will not be the first one. It is good to stretch out of your comfort zone. The problem I have generally with landscapes, and this is probably a how can I put it? A deficiency in myself, is that I just don't find them interesting to paint. And when I say it's a deficiency in myself, I say that because like they are hard. It's not like they're easy. It's not like they're you know, uninteresting. I do like looking at landscapes. I take photos of places I go to. I just don't find them that interesting to paint. And because I don't find them that interesting to paint, I'm not nearly as good at them as, I am other things that I do like to paint, because I don't study them the same way because I'm not as interested in them. But like I said, I consider it a kind of deficiency in myself, in the sense that like I should be able to find something interesting in them that I really enjoy painting. So maybe I just need to do it more, that might be the case. But so far, not so much. But I'll stretch anyways. Des says, Sigh, I wish I was good at landscapes. I need to figure out what I'm having trouble doing. There. Cookie Monster says, are you applying the paint fairly dry? Your results are awesome, but wouldn't you want to add a little more thinner to make it flow better? Yes, I am. I am adding thinner as I'm going. What the problem is, my thinner is. It's just because I'm using this, it's a little awkward for me right now. I am applying thinner, so every time I do like a dry brush stroke and I feel it like going on a little dry, I add thinner to make everything move a little better. But I don't want to add too much thinner, because if I do that, two things are going to happen. Because of the thinner I'm using, it could make everything take much longer to dry, which isn't a huge problem because I generally like that. But it could also make everything so slippery that I cannot paint anymore. Like, I can get to the point where it's like I can't put down any paint without picking up paint. So the only way for me to keep painting is to wait for it to dry, or just you know, wipe some of it off. That that's always a problem, but you can paint wet into wet when your paint isn't overly slippery. And one of the ways you can make it overly slippery is with too much thinner. So yeah. Des says there is too much. I need to learn to simplify, but that means finding really interesting lighting or some feature that makes it special. I get that. Cookie Monster says, very interesting to hear your reason for painting the way you do. Uh, yeah, absolutely. I'm always happy to share techniques and all of that, you know. Like I said, I generally paint on smooth surfaces. I do paint pretty, you know, on smooth surfaces. And when I first started painting, I don't think I would have been able to paint on the surfaces I'm currently painting on, because if a lot of people, when they start painting, they feel like they're ice skating, and the paint is just sliding around, and it's all becoming a mess, and they're making mud. As you get better at it, you know, and you get more control over the medium, that changes a bit, but you can still get to that point for sure. And then the other thing is, it is interesting that, like, when you're painting, how can I phrase this? Um, my my brain is buffering. So when you're painting, different surfaces naturally lend themselves to different types of painting. For instance, smooth surfaces actually, kind of ironically, lend themselves to more expressive paintings with more brush marks. And a slightly rougher textured surface is actually better for very smooth paintings where you don't see the brush marks. Within reason, though, because if the surface is too textured, then you're going to run into other problems. But yeah, it's an interesting kind of opposite effect that you would think. Also, the absorbance is how absorbent the surface is also can dictate that, and also the paint and mediums you're using for oil specifically. For instance, there are painting mediums that are self-leveling, and so you can put down brush marks, but as it sits there, it will just kind of all level out, and you can lose a lot of the texture of the brush marks. Some of those mediums will level out so much that you'll lose the brush marks altogether. Some will keep the brush marks, but you won't get all of the, like, the hair, like the strokes, the hair in the brush strokes. So it just depends on the medium and the paint you're using, and so on. But yeah, I'm with Des. When I paint landscapes, one of the things I struggle with is that there's just so much detail, and it's very hard to simplify down the detail so that it's not overwhelming. And that is something that um, I definitely think is more a factor of experience with the subject matter. Because when it comes to people, for instance, I have a much better idea of like what things are more important than others to convey certain things, right? Like if I want to convey a certain feeling or a certain action or a certain whatever, I definitely have a much better idea as to like what things should I include and what things can I omit to still have that feeling. And I don't necessarily have that with landscapes, and that's probably due to lack of experience. Either that or I'm just so overwhelmed by the vast details that I short circuit and, struggle with it. That could be too. Probably is. There's also a ton of things in landscapes that like if you don't study them, you don't know them. And I know some of those things, and definitely not all of them, but like, a lot of people are familiar with atmospheric perspective. It's when you literally see like the air as things get much farther away. It actually, uh, kind of what's the word I'm looking for? Um, it the sum of it kind of gets in the way, and you literally um, can't see as well through it. And the way it affects light is very interesting because if I remember correctly, it is first the reds, then the yellows, and then the blues that it interferes with you being able to see those colors. So, and I think it's based off of like the light waves, the length of the light waves, but I'm not sure. But yeah, so if you notice, a lot of times like trees and stuff in the distance might seem they might seem duller and like they're um, actually it might be yellow that goes out first. I can't remember. Damn, now I can't. Now I'm curious. Don't remember. But yeah, they might seem like they're not as green. That's why. And then they seem kind of blue, like way, way, way in the distance, and that's why. And then same thing with like the contrast. That's why the contrast kind of fades as it goes on. And this is very basic stuff. I like I said, I'm not an expert landscape painter. You are correct. The further away, the more gray and blue the colors. The closer, the more red. Yeah, but I can't remember which one it is that you lose first, red or yellow. But thank you, I appreciate that. But yes, it's one of them goes first, and that because it's based it's based off of the physics of it all. But yes. start adding in the bridge. I absolutely hate painting architectural stuff, but it is there, so I'm going to give it a shot. From close to far away, 1 red, 2 yellow, 3 blue. Thank you. Okay, so it was red first, then yellow, then okay. Thank you, appreciate that. I went out, what's it called? Plein air painting with a really good plein air painter, and it was really funny because, I mean, he's way better than me, without a doubt, you know. And then it was funny because you know, he knows a bunch of things about the things that he's painting, the same way that like I know things about like, you know, like the same way that I know things about anatomy, he knows things about trees and, you know, plants and stuff like that. And it was very interesting to, you know, to go out with him and see how much expertise he has. That says I'll be practicing landscapes. I take those free online classes, and sometimes I surprise myself by some of the stuff I can do, but never satisfied. That's fair. But it's good that you're trying. I'm trying to use my big brush for most of this painting because I don't want to get overwhelmed by the details, right? So, so I'm going to try and do most of it with my large brush. That's always good advice in general, but you know, specifically for me for this, yes. One thing I know is a little common. I've seen a lot of artists do this. They like to paint the shadows purple, and you know, it's not that that's wrong, um, but it's become so common now that that I've you know heard artists actually make jokes about it. So you know, I am a little aware of that. Cookie Monster says, Laura, landscapes are awesome and shouldn't be too hard to get really good at if you keep it up. Yeah, and it's definitely doable, and she does definitely has the potential, has the skills to get to get there. Excuse me for a second. Hello, I am streaming. How are you doing? I'm fine. How's the bread? Okay, let me know. Well, later. All right. Dresden, don't go. Oh, our little friend didn't come to join. Oh well. He'll be back later. I said, how's the brat? No, I did not. Did my microphone not pick up things properly? Let's see, 1 second. Test. Oh, okay. So my mute isn't working. I asked how the bread was. Good to know that my mute button doesn't work now. That's lovely. I know. My girlfriend just got home. I asked her how the bread was because I made bread. Had a lot of technical difficulties today, and I should have thought about checking my mute button, but I did not. The mic and the sound are fine. Yeah, no, like I said, I intended to mute that because I was just saying hi to her. But yeah, did not think it was working, so that's why I was confused for a minute. Oh well. I mean, I'm glad the sound is working because in the beginning of the stream, it wasn't. I have had a bunch of technical difficulties today because, of course, I did. Like, that's the thing with streaming. It really, it's one of the most infuriating parts of it. It's like even if you have everything set up and you don't touch anything, it can just break on its own. Des, thank you for catching the spammer. I appreciate it. Des is one of my mods and helps out. I'm very low maintenance as far as modding goes, but I do appreciate the help. There were Windows updates. I always blame those, especially with the sound issues. Oh, absolutely. But who knows? Like I said, the software I use, I use a software to like route my sound so that in theory I can, I could hear something but play something else for you all and stuff like that. Like, and just I use it for other things as well. For like when I have what's it called? When I do Skype calls or no, not Skype, but Zoom or anything like that. Oh, that is way, way, way too strong. Okay. Cookie Monster says, "Do you live with your girlfriend?" And I also have a girlfriend, and it's going really well. We don't live together yet. Yeah, we live together. We've lived together for a very long time. 13 years, I think, at this point. Yeah. We moved from California to Texas together. So yeah, it's been a long, been a long relationship. Been through a lot. Uh, but I'm happy to hear that for you, Cookie Monster. I'm glad it's going well for you. I hope that it continues that way. And if that did sound ominous, I didn't mean it that way. I'm glad for you. I hope that continues. Yeah, when her mom got sick, we moved her mom out to live with us, and took care of her. So yeah, we've been through a lot, and you know, having someone there for you is definitely, you know, um, definitely special. Oh, let's see. I did mess with the photo a little bit in Photoshop. Not much, very, very little. I lightened it up a bit. I was like, I feel like it needs to be just a bit lighter, so I did that. But I didn't do a ton other than that. One of my favorite painters, um, I know who he is. I just always forget his online name. Um, he um, he paints with, well, a lot of different mediums, but the one painting I always reference is that he did. I saw him do this landscape, and I've seen other artists do this too, especially production artists. They're more familiar with this. They'll do like a landscape painting, um, with nothing but like, well, they'll do it digitally, and they'll do it with nothing but like square brushes that have no variation to them in any way when you paint with them. They just go on just simple, right? Like nothing changes. You put the color down and that's it. And they're still able to make amazing, paintings that way. I always try and keep that in mind because, you know, um, especially for landscape paintings, because it's such a simplified version of a landscape that way. So just try and keep that in mind, that I don't need to put in all the details and everything to make it look like the thing itself. All right. That blue is definitely not correct, but I'll get to it later. Maybe. Maybe I'll leave it in. We'll see. Nice painting greeting from the Philippines. Welcome. Oh, hello, sir. Welcome. Kenneth, welcome. Thank you. Appreciate it. I don't normally paint landscapes, but I figured if I'm going to dress the part, I might as well, do the part. So, you're an artist too? Very nice. What kind of art do you do? Thanks for sharing your CMYK. Ah, you're welcome. I hope it was helpful. I think if I were doing a ton more landscape paintings, like if I did this all the time, I do think I might invest in some other colors, if for no other reason, just to reduce the amount of mixing that I have to do. But um, you know, nothing wrong with convenience colors. Oh, that is early in the morning, 6:49 a.m. Oof. And it says, I mostly paint cars and portraits. Very nice. I mostly do portraits and figurative stuff, as you probably know. Cars, oof, that's a tough one. Very cool that you paint cars though. There's so much geometry to them, You have to get it all correct. Otherwise it looks off. Okay, Monster says it's 10 minutes to midnight where I am. That has a very different meaning to some people. But that's yeah. Yes, Kenneth, I am American, correct. I am in Austin, Texas. I'm not originally from Austin, Texas, but that's where I am now. Nope. Uh, Kenneth says I have relatives in America. Oh, very nice. Oof. Cookie Monster says LOL, especially on Halloween, I think. No, they used to they used to they used to I think it was in the 50s. They used to count down the basically the end of the world, or how likely it was by like how close the clock is to midnight, had to do with like the Cold War type of stuff. So they would move the clock closer to midnight every time, and then back it away if things were, instead of like threat level, you know orange and yellow and red or something. It's kind of like that. Um, yeah, this is the type of thing that you would only know this if you either lived through it, or like me, if you happen to read something where they reference it. But it's not as common anymore, obviously. Cookie Monster says, "Oh, I see. I have heard of that about that. Yeah, yeah. It's one of those things that you see a lot of times. It's on like TV shows or in comic books, or stuff like that." No, Halloween. On Halloween, the witching hour, I think, is the thing, and that would be isn't that 2 a.m. if I'm not mistaken? I could be wrong though. Maybe it's midnight, but I thought it was like 2 a.m. Kenneth says they live in California and Florida. Oh, very nice. Yeah, the reference painting right now is actually from a trip we did in driving from San Francisco down to LA when we lived there. So this is off of the coast, off a Big Sur, if I'm not mistaken. Anyway, Sur, is that alla prima? I mean, technically, yeah. Although a lot of, I guess not. We'll see. So far, yes. Technically, alla prima just means in one sitting, and sometimes, or a lot of times, I go more than one sitting, and so the way I categorize it is usually direct painting, not alla prima, because technically, it is what it is. But yes, there's a lot of misconceptions around that. Like, a lot of people think that John Singer Sargent did all his paintings in one sitting. That is not true in the slightest for a ton of his paintings. So there's a lot of misconceptions around that. But yes, technically direct painting. So I'm not going to do any. I'm off camera for a minute because I'm doing something on the computer. But yeah, I'm not going to be doing any glazing or anything like that. So even when I do paint in layers, because one layer dries, I'm just I'm painting over it the same way I would if I was painting over a wet painting. It's just, unfortunately, the paint dried and I can no longer paint wet into wet. Sometimes, occasionally, you do need a painting to dry in order to achieve a certain look, but with the exception of that, I usually would prefer the painting to stay wet until I'm done with it. Alrighty. But yeah. Um, so take that how you will. The reason I say that is because some people have kind of argued with me that oh, it's not technically alla prima. I'm like, okay, fine. If you want to argue with me, then technically it's not alla prima. Okay. All right. Let's see here. All right. I have to take breaks to let my camera cool down because otherwise it will overheat. and then I won't be able to show you the painting at all. Kenneth, if you join the Discord, you are welcome to share paintings in there. Unfortunately, on YouTube, the auto moderation is faulty somehow and overly aggressive, and it won't let people, post links. And so if you wanted to share your art here, you can't in the chat, unfortunately. But you're welcome to join the Discord and share there. I'd love to see the type of art that you do. But yeah, I cannot for the life of me get the moderation to work properly. It's supposed to show me a notification when people share links, and that lets me decide whether or not I want to allow the link or not. But for some reason, that never works. Des can put a link, by the way, because she is a moderator, and so she's doing that. Thank you, Des. I appreciate it. Alrighty, let's get into fixing something. Some of my stuff is a little out of place, so let's fix it. Oh, Des is trying to help out. Thank you so much, Des. I appreciate it. So yeah, so when I'm streaming, I don't usually spend too much time measuring because honestly, I generally don't like to spend too much time measuring in general, but also when I'm streaming, I'm trying to be entertaining, usually failing, but trying in either way. And I am trying to make things go a little faster until at least the end when there's no way for me to actually speed up the process. But because I don't measure. I use Photoshop to. I overlay Photoshop in my. I use Photoshop to overlay my reference and my painting with each other, so I can see, where things got off a little bit, and it's a very useful system. But yeah, so now I'm trying to correct some of the, misplacements that I did. Welcome back. So I don't know a ton about the Philippines because I've never visited. Um, but I recently watched a show that, you know, took place in the Philippines, and it was, I mean, it was a whatever show, like, but if I'm not mistaken, part of the reason that they did the show in the Philippines was because it was during COVID, and I think it was easier for them to film it there. But it was beautiful. The scenery was um, landscapes were beautiful. Let's see. Kenneth says 98 Days Fiance. No, this was like it was like an action show. I don't remember the name of it. Something in Paradise or whatever. But like I said, the show was whatever. I mean, it was fine. You know, it was like there was an American guy who like moved to the Philippines, and you know, but like I said, the landscapes and everything were gorgeous. No, I haven't. I haven't watched 90 Day. I mean, I know of 90 Day Fiance. I haven't watched it. Return to Paradise. Um, Almost Paradise. That's what it was. Almost Paradise. And then Kenneth also says, uh, split primary is too overwhelming to me. Split primary, yeah. I understand why. Like, it works. Split primary does work, but it's a lot of paints for a lot of overlap. Yeah. It's set in Cuba Island? I don't think so. Unless unless I'm misunderstanding something, but yeah. Oh, hold on a second. All right. Um I got you. Oh, sorry, that was my alarm. No. Haha. Little boy, welcome. It's Dresden. Oh, Cebu? Okay, Philippines are composed of 3 islands. Okay. I was under the impression that it was in the Philippines. Maybe I misunderstood it. This is Dresden. My little boy. Aw. How do you like my new hairdo, Dresden? Do you care? He does not care. No, Dresden is named after Harry Dresden, the wizard from the book series The Dresden Files. Now, Harry Dresden was probably named um, after the German city or whatever, but no, I named him after a book series wizard. Mwah. He's very cute, yes. You called like one of your cats Tom from Tom and Jerry when you were a kid? That makes sense. Dresden. Show my Dresden painting? Sure. Why do you keep looking at the camera, Dresden? Like he's looking at the camera that's up there. Oh. Okay. You can go, little boy. Oh. Hold on, trying to make sure that all the hair that flies from me doesn't go on the painting. Yeah, I have three cats, but Dresden is probably my favorite. Although I shouldn't pick favorites, but he is. He just, I don't know, something you know how it is. Sometimes you have a special connection. Yeah. So yeah, this is one of the paintings I did of Dresden. The other painting of Dresden sold, so I don't have it anymore. Yeah, one of my favorite painters, Chelsea Lang, her palette is like, I'm trying to remember, 16 colors or something. I was just thinking about what we talked about. It's so many colors. I don't know how she keeps track of that, even if it's 12. Hold on a second. I heard yelling from the other room. I'm back. Sorry about that. The dog um, got into a place and like got stuck behind the couch, kind of thing. Yeah. Can I can I ask Chelsea Lang? Yes, Chelsea Lang, from YouTube. She has uh, she has classes and videos online. Yeah, she does. And yeah, it is overwhelming. It's a lot. I don't I don't know how she paints with so many colors. I mean, I can understand it to a small degree, like um what's it called? Like um if I was painting, you know, and I had like specialty colors that I only dipped into a little here and there, sure, but I used to have more colors on my palette. Like I actually had what was it? I think the last color that I took off was the cad red light that I had because I could mix a color very, very close to Cad Red Light. Now, I couldn't quite match it one-to-one, so when I really, really need that color, then um, I go grab the tube of paint. But 90% of the time, it's pointless. Same thing with all the other colors that I used to have on my palette. Like um, I used to have ultramarine blue. I can basically mix very similar to ultramarine blue. I used to have oh, what's the word? What's the other one? I'm trying to remember. Cerulean blue. I can mix very close to cerulean blue. I had cobalt teal. I can mix almost the cobalt teal. Once again, I can't quite match the very, very, very saturated colors like cobalt teal, but you can get so close that unless you are using it straight out of the tube, it's pointless. Unless it's a convenience color. Like, I totally understand the idea behind convenience colors. If you want things to be smooth and fast, yeah, absolutely. Kenneth says, yeah, because the number of colored pencils colors is already overwhelming to me. Oh yeah, absolutely. You mentioned one of in your videos that cobalt teal is less powerful compared to ultramarine and phthalo blue. So it's maybe I didn't do a good job of explaining it, but it's not that it's less powerful necessarily. It's that um, cobalt teal is a very saturated color. It's a very bright, beautiful, beautiful color. The problem is that as soon as you, with every color, as soon as you mix other colors into it, it desaturates, right? That's across the board, every single color. That's the nature of mixing colors, with paint, right? But what happens is that phthalo comes out of the tube very, very dark. But when you add white to it, it technically desaturates, but you get to see so much more of that blue, color come to life because it's not so dark anymore. Cobalt teal is already a very light color, so it has no room to maneuver in the same manner. As soon as you add white to it, it gets chalky, and if you add darker colors to it, it desaturates and becomes darker. So it doesn't have as much room to play. So even though it's closer to a true cyan, it's just not as useful of a color as far as a mixing color goes. Um, Kenneth says Cad Red Light is the closest to vermilion. Uh, it depends on the brand, probably. I mean, probably. It depends on the brand. Some brands are more, orangey. Some are more red. But yeah, probably. Um, Cookie Monster says, I'm leaving again, Liad. My eyes are drifting shut from sleep. No worries, Cookie Monster. Thank you for being here. Thanks for the chat and sharing your artwork. Absolutely. Thank you for hanging out. I appreciate it. And have a good night. Kenneth says, Cobalt teal is my favorite color despite I don't use it. I mean, it's a gorgeous color. I love it. Yeah. I mean, in terms of tinting strength, even, it's Cobalt cousin Cobalt Blue. I haven't used Cobalt Blue. Cobalts are expensive. I haven't used Cobalt Blue. I so yeah, I don't know. And then what's it called? When it comes to paint, one of the things is the colors. General statement. This isn't always true, but general statement is the colors that are transparent or semi-transparent are better at mixing in the sense that they when you mix them with white, they um, you know they look like the same way that phthalo blue kind of comes to life when you mix it with white. Too much and it chalks up, of course, but in the beginning, that's the way to see it. Um, Generally, that's true for most of the transparent or semi-transparent colors. The opaque colors, on the other hand, they usually instantly chalk up and become, um, you know, much duller right away. It's not to say that they're worse because they have advantages. It's just something to be aware of by their nature. You know what I mean? Kenneth says, "I see. Thank you for sharing. Absolutely, happy to be sharing." All right. So, all right, back to trying to correct some of my placement here. But yeah, cobalt teal is gorgeous. I love that color. Um, and I really thought it was going to be like my part of my primary palette. Um, you know, but it turned out to not be. But yeah, that's um, I tried to find like to build my palette for a long time, and I did use a lot of different colors trying to learn it all. Um, and I definitely haven't learned it all because there's so many colors out there. I'm not going to try and claim that, but so far this is the palette that I've kind of landed on for now. And it's not to say that it's like the one and only and the best palette, not at all. It's what works for me, and there are reasons that I like it, but um, really to each their own when it comes to that. Um, but yeah, um, see here. I do like the simplicity of it, and also the relative cost effectiveness of it as well. However, I do recognize that some people just cannot paint with phthalo blue. They just find phthalo blue too difficult to work with, and I totally get that. It's not an easy color to work with. Um, yeah, it's definitely not. Yeah, my self-portrait back here, that this one right here, that won Jerry's Artorama self-portrait competition. I used cobalt in that one to give um, the split color effect. Wow, I was off with this. Ooh, sweet. All right. You first saw it on Andrew Tischler's Australian artist. Yeah, yeah, that's where I was introduced to it too. I think where he was talking about using cobalt as a primary, but I really think he's mistaken. Well, not mistaken. I just don't think it's a very good. Uh, I don't think it's a very good primary. The thing is, if you CMYK has its roots in printing, right? And in printing, they're not using pigments; they're using dyes, if I'm not mistaken. And it's all the colors that they're using are transparent, right? Because they print in layers, and they have to be transparent. Um, and so I think that the way that they function, because they are transparent, and the way that they go on is different than how we paint, assuming that you're not painting in like transparent layers like that. And most people, even if they do layer, they're not painting that way. No, the cyan from printing. Um, so CMYK, it's originally it it's from the print world, where you know they print um, they print in layers, right? So the way that they do it is they print a plate that is only they break the image into 4 colors, which is CMYK, and that's how they make everything. And then there is also spot coloring, because CMYK is a very limited color space, so they do spot coloring as well. But yeah, um, that's where it comes from. But in printing, it's a dye that they're using, because it's ink, and so if I'm not mistaken, it's a dye. But it's either way, it's ink, and it's see-through, or trans translucent, I guess. And so I think it functions different than pigments in oil paint, and that's why I think that phthalo is better than cobalt teal. Because he literally follows the color of the printer. Yes, but like I said, printers just function differently than oil paint, and I think that's the mistake there. So, I mean, that's that's my view on it, in the sense that, like, teal is just not a great primary. Having said that, I recently saw I saw someone who claimed that you can mix red with a what was it? It was um, phthalo green and I think it was phthalo green and magenta, which I thought produced a black, but that's technically a rose, not magenta. Anyways, I think it was magenta and phthalo green, and they made red, like vermilion red. That kind of red, and I was just like, oh, that's fascinating. So in theory, I could see possibly conceiving a primary palette with phthalo green, magenta, and a yellow, kind of thing. I don't know. It'd be bizarre, but I'm curious to try it out. So I might actually be before before I make an order for my next paints. I was thinking of trying to find that video again and maybe add those colors, so I can try it out myself. Even Epson's and HP sell violet, orange, and green to extend its color gamut, but it's optional. Oh yeah, I know. Printers have been using spot colors for forever because the you know the standard printing process is very limited in its color range. Like and I'm not talking home printers. I'm talking like plate printers. The people who print magazines and all of that. Like that's how they do it, and you can see it on products too. Actually, on some products, you can still see the CMYK squares that they have from the printing process. If you've ever seen on a magazine or usually it's more on boxes, like on the inside, or on I see it a lot on like water bottles, like when they come in in like a big package of water bottles, and on the bottom sometimes you'll see these like squares, and it's the CMYK squares, and then an empty square or something like that. That's They're using that to align the printing press. The closest medium that can mimic CMYK is watercolor due to its transparency. Um, that's Frizzle Art something. I mean, technically, you can just paint with ink. You could easily paint with ink. You can also use markers. Markers could probably pull off CMYK pretty well, because they do function much the same way. Markers are not very light fast though, so they will over time kind of fade. Watercolor. The problem with watercolor for CMYK painting is that watercolor uses the same pigments that for the most part that oil and acrylic use, and so it's just ground up thinner or smaller, sorry, and it uses gum arabic as the binder, of course. Um, but because of that, I don't know if you can find a true cyan, because as far as I know, cyan is only in ink. I don't know of a pigment that that is a true cyan. I could be wrong about that, but as far as I know, that's the case. Like, there might be exceptions or something else, but yeah, as far as I know. But also, most watercolor artists don't really paint that way, right? It's a very unnatural way to paint, you know? And so I don't think that people generally paint like that. Let's see. Kenneth says, because the only advantage of CMYK to other color triad is that has a larger color gamut compared to RYB and Zorn. Yeah, well, yes, it does, because it's yes, exactly. The problem with those ones is that, technically speaking, RYB is just not what you would consider a primary palette. Even though it's considered one, it's not really. And, honestly, a primary palette is kind of not a serious, like, distinction, because, in theory, right? In theory, a primary palette is a palette that, I guess I would have to look up the actual definition of a primary palette. But in my mind, a primary palette is a palette that you can mix all the colors with, just those colors, right? So you have your primary colors, and from those colors you can mix every other color. But it's not accurate. There's limitations to what, these palettes can do, right? It's just that CMYK has a much, you know, uh, broader limitations, or less limitations, however you want to phrase it, right? Uh, RYB, it doesn't even come close to CMYK in that regards. But it's still not perfect, and it can't mix everything, and you still need to add in other colors if you really need, like, really, really saturated colors, But it's very rare. I do most of my paintings, and I never need another. I never need um, all those other colors. And then you have people like what's his name, James Gurney, who, it feels like he never needs any other colors. Like, he can paint anything with any color because he's just that good. Um, so there is that. Like, that guy is just ridiculously good. But yeah. Kenneth says, honestly, the I learned color mixing from Mark Carter from aka Drawmix Paint. Yeah, his color mixing demo is very, very easy to understand. I think he did a fantastic job with it. Um, you know, he, I think he only recently added phthalo. I think before it was ultramarine blue that he had on his palette. Um, so do I think that was the best? The best primary palette? No, but you can do a lot even with the Zorn palette, right? I mean, you can't paint everything with the Zorn palette, but you can do a lot with it. So really, like, it doesn't, all of this is nice and all, but ultimately, like, it doesn't really matter, right? Uh, Whatever palette you're comfortable with, whatever works for you, is good. I I like this because I can use the same paints to paint most things, and I don't have to add paints, subtract paints, or whatever. However, it is time consuming, and I do think that convenience colors are in my future at some point because, why waste so much time mixing all the time kind of thing. Um, and like I said, I still plan on exploring other colors. There's a few, like I said, I want to explore that phthalo green one potentially because I do have phthalo green. I just don't use it because I never need it. Um, and then I also, what was it? What was the other thing I wanted to try? There's definitely other colors I want to try. Um, but no, there's one thing in particular. Oh yeah, yellows. I want to explore some darker yellows. See if that actually opens up more, more potential or not. So yeah, James Gurney, you know him? Too nice. Yeah. Well, I wouldn't say that like we're friends. I've met him. I wouldn't claim to be his friend, but I've seen his stuff online and I've met him in person. He's very, very nice. Extremely nice. Yes, mixing colors decreases the chroma. Yeah, absolutely. I like him, but I don't agree to his adding clove oil to oil paints. Um, I don't know his stance on that. Mark Carter adds clove oil to his oil paints. I use clove oil in, I have a little container of clove oil, um, well, yeah, that I keep in my sealed palette, but I don't add it to my paint. I just keep my paint in a sealed container with some open clove oil, but I don't mix it into my paint. It's there just to slow the oxidizing. Yeah, so it fills, um, it fills the palette, air up. Zorn palette is suitable in portraits and figurative painting. It is, but the thing too is that like the Zorn palette, most people don't use the original Zorn palette. They're using a modified version of the Zorn palette. And I think that the actual Zorn palette might um, be slightly more effective. And I do mean slightly, not like huge, but yeah. All right, let's see if I can start adding some detail to this, because right now there's not a lot of detail here. And I learned to simplify painting from Paint Coach. Nice. Paint Coach, I think Des watches him a lot. I think I've seen some of his stuff, but not a lot. Unless I'm getting names confused. It could be. I do that a lot. Uh, okay. Des says, yeah, I've done his free class a few times and watched his videos. Yeah. I think I've seen some of his videos if I'm not Unless I'm getting everything confused, but yeah. Yes, good stuff. He sells oil paint that contains a little bit of clove oil for slower drying times. I thought that was Mark Carter. Does the paint coach also? I thought that was Dramix Paint. I know Dramix Paint stopped producing their own paint. If I'm not mistaken, because of a fire. So they stopped producing their own paint, um, or it just became financially unsustainable. But yeah. Speaking of Zorn palette, me and my friends will make a content about Zorn palette. Nice. Uh, I'm assuming you've done some paintings in the Zorn palette before. Um, I have you researched the Zorn palette at all? Because I'm curious what your thoughts are on it if you have. Um, we will make a video about Zorn palette later. We will paint a Filipino celebrity that made in Zorn palette. Oh, very nice. That's cool. So the thing about the Zorn palette, I'm curious if you've looked into this, um, is that nobody uses the original Zorn palette anymore, uh, or almost no one uses it, because some of the pigments are um, very hard to get or just very expensive. So everyone uses a modified version of it, but they're, how can I phrase this? The modifications are inconsequential, sort of. Let's see. Kenneth says, but I don't have cadmium red uh, light. Instead, I'm using pyrrole red. Okay, so you're using an even different one. Okay, so here's the thing, and this, when I say it's inconsequential, I do mean it, because the changes are somewhat inconsequential, but they do change how it functions a little bit, right? Because it has to, just by the nature of it being different. So pyrrole red tends to be a little more blue. Like, it's a red, obviously, but it leans into the blue more than cadmium red usually does. Cadmium red is usually more orange, right? And so you're getting a cooler red, most likely. Now, every paint manufacturer is a little different, so it's very hard to say. but cadmium red leans orange, or warm in comparison, right? And vermilion, arguably even more yellow than most cadmium reds, which is why I said like it's already a little different. Then you have the yellow ochre, yellow ochre light, if I'm not mistaken, is a very light, gentle yellow. It's not a very vibrant yellow. However, if I'm not mistaken, the original Zorn palette was made with a very particular yellow ochre light, which was a little more saturated and a little warmer. If I'm not mistaken, that's my understanding. I could be wrong. I'm not, definitely not an expert on it, but that's my understanding. And then the final one, and this is the really problematic one, is ivory black. Modern ivory black is made from bone char. And I will not use it because it is made from animals, and I refuse to use it. Having said that, the reason it's called ivory black is my understanding. Once again, I could be wrong, but as far as I know, ivory black was originally made from actual ivory. And yeah, you can't really get ivory anymore. And if you can, why would you ever do that with it? That would be awful. So you can't get ivory black, true ivory black. And the reason that actually matters is if I'm not mistaken, while everybody claims that ivory black is a cool black, I don't think it's that cool of a black. I think it leans warmer than everyone thinks it does, at least to me. So, which I suspect true ivory black was much cooler, and that's why you could kind of use it as a blue substitute. That's my understanding of it. So you using a cool red is funny because it's kind of all swapped, but that's just my opinion. Yeah. But like I said, the differences aren't huge. They are very subtle. And you can absolutely do a painting with Zorn palette. I don't mean to make it sound like you can't because of these things. It's just, to be aware of. Like, if you're painting a portrait with the Zorn palette, you might want to, discourage them from wearing, blue shirts or something. You know what I mean? Just kind of something to be aware of. Unless you're really looking for a challenge, because I did that, and some people did not see it. Some people totally got where I was coming from, but some people really did not understand my what I was trying to do. So, whatever. If you don't know what I'm talking about, I don't remember. I'm assuming it's on my YouTube channel. I just don't remember at this point what is and what isn't. It might have been a short, but yeah, I painted a self-portrait, and I was using the Zorn palette or a modified Zorn palette. I don't remember, but no blue. So I tried to make the background. It was a painting of it was a self-portrait where I'm standing in front of the ocean and I'm wearing a blue shirt, and I tried to kind of convey those things without having access to blue. Um, and like I said, some people totally saw what I was going for. Other people did not understand what I was doing. So, you can't always get everybody, but it was definitely a fun experiment to do. So if you want to torture yourself, you could do that. But yeah, a Pyrrole red is a fantastic red, by the way. I do think it's probably like overall better than cadmium red. Also not nearly as toxic, but yeah. But yeah, it is a lot of fun to experiment with different, you know, um, different combinations of things. One of my favorite paintings that I did, I used only 3 pigments. Um, it was uh, phthalo green, um, yellow shade, and quinacridone rose, and white. That's it. And because those two actually mixed to make a black, I also had access to black, even though I didn't have black in my palette. It was a lot of fun, and it came out with a really good painting. So, you know, so it was a lot of fun to be had with trying different palettes and different combinations. I love how James Gurney will go out and just, you know, decide that he's, doing a painting with like a limited palette, and he'll just use like some of the most random kind of, colors together. And he's like, yeah, that's my palette today. It's like, okay, buddy. And he makes it work because he's so good at it. But yeah, you're back. You had to go cook breakfast. No worries. I was talking about the experience of painting with the Zorn palette and its limitations and some of the details about it. So yeah, might want to rewind at some point, or something. But yeah, it, Come on, let's eat and enjoy your breakfast. I'm actually going to be ending the stream soon, uh, so that I can go have dinner and everything. And feed the animals too. They're getting antsy because it's dinner time for them. All right, before I go though, I want to put in the happy little tree so that I fulfill that at least. I mean, it's already kind of there, but let's get into it just a little bit. It's far off in the distance, so we're not going to get a ton of detail in it, but I'm going to make it stand out a bit with color. Hey, Cassandra, welcome. Yeah, I'm, in character. And just said hello, Liad, and hair. And Kenneth says it's a great palette, but Zorn used other pigments too. Oh, absolutely. He did not stick just to that. And I don't think he even invented it. He just made it popular, um, technically speaking. But yeah, uh, he used other pigments. It's not even, no one who knows what they're talking about thinks that he used only that. It's really just kind of a good palette for, it's just really a good limited palette for certain things and for students, honestly. Like a lot of students start on it because it is so limited, you don't have to worry about a lot of things. So you can just focus kind of. How you doing, Cassandra? All right. Doing all right. My dad just left after hanging out with us this week. Oh, nice. All righty. Unfortunately, oh, that's funny. Unfortunately, I'm getting ready to end stream now. I have to go feed the animals and so on. But this is the progress I made. I'm not as fast as Bob Ross, unfortunately. You have such good timing. I know, Cassandra. I'm so sorry. I'm also hungry. I have to go eat something and so on. But yes, your timing is to be applauded. Um, Not in the positive, but still something. uh, Kenneth says, bye, see, Mr. Lee. I have to charge my phone. Have a nice day. Happy streaming. Thank you so much for joining. I appreciate it. I hope you have a good day. You're the one who's starting your day. I'm towards the end of my day. So yeah, have a good rest of your day. Um, have a good night, everybody else. Um, and yeah, I will be back on Wednesday. And I'm trying to think what else. That's about it. Yeah. Have a good rest of your weekend or a good week, everybody. I'll see you on Wednesday. And what is it? If you make mistakes, just make them birds. All right. Have a good one, everyone.